What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's Bran here, and instead of doing a bloody breakdown episode, I thought I'd do something a little bit different here, and that is to rank the Friday the 13th films from worst to best. Keep in mind, guys, this is just simply my opinion. Obviously, this isn't like a definitive list of any sort. This is just how I feel about the franchise. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. The first movie I have here, coming in dead last, is the 2009 Friday the 13th Reboot. It's probably cliche amongst horror films to be like, the reboot's the worst one. And I honestly didn't just look at this and say, oh, Reboot goes at the bottom. There were a lot of different things that went into compiling this list, ranking this massive franchise, and just to be honest with you, I do appreciate the fact that they took the original 1 through 3 or 4, depending on how you look at it, to remake the film. I can appreciate that. I wasn't a huge fan of the look of Jason in this movie. I think that they probably could have done a little bit better there, but aside from a few characters that were kind of enjoyable, even in a dickish way like Trent, there's really not a whole lot of redeeming qualities about this film in my personal opinion. Which, if we're talking about the entire franchise, and we are, that's what lands the Reboot at the very bottom of this list. Okay, so up next is a movie I'm sure a lot of people would have put at dead last, but I thought that this film has more redeeming qualities than the Reboot, and that is the very hated Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Now, brace yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Even though this is second to last on my list here of the worst of the Friday films, I actually don't mind this movie that much. I do think it's an issue, the fact that Jason isn't really in the movie a whole lot. I understand what Adam Marcus was going for whenever he said, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder type thing. Give him Jason at the beginning, make him wait the whole movie, you get Jason at the end. I understood. I think the unrated version is extremely graphic, very violent, which in my opinion is A-okay with me. So there are some redeeming qualities to this film that I enjoy. Creighton Duke is another. I think his one-liners are pretty hilarious. The little girl in a pink dress shoving a hot dog through a donut, it's fucking classic. But if we're looking at the entire franchise, let's be real, it's got to be down there pretty low. Coming in at the number 10 spot is another effort that was very close to the release of The Final Friday, and that is Jason X, another movie that I think a lot of people out there watching this would have probably put dead last, just depending on your taste. For me, anytime it's time to send a horror icon into space, it kind of just shows that franchise is on its deathbed. I give you Leprechaun 4 in space. Unless it starts in space. Don't get me wrong. Alien, fantastic film. But anytime you have to take your monster out of their own element to send them into space, it's probably not a good indication that things are going well. With that said, I do enjoy the frozen face smash that Jason does. I think everyone does. I love the design, the look of Uber Jason. I love the idea of Uber Jason. I love the idea of Cronenberg's in the movie. That's awesome. I love the idea of the government trying to find a way to kill him unsuccessfully and then wanting to test him to see how they can harness his powers of regeneration. Pretty cool, but all in all, not really a fantastic movie. Not a fan of the acting in this movie for the most part. So yeah, that's why it's going to come in at number 10 of 12. So coming up next, another movie I think a lot of people at the number 9 spot would have maybe made a bid for this to be in dead last. However, I do find a lot of redeeming qualities in this film, and that is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. The Jason-less film. Even less Jason than Jason Goes to Hell, mind you. So with this one, of course, a lot of people have a problem with the ambulance driver or the EMT, Roy Burns being the copycat or imitation Jason, but if you really break it down, guys, and just watch the film for what it is, it's got some really awesome kills. It's got a high body count, and it's got a pretty decent story. Other than the motive of why Roy's doing what he's doing, I actually kind of like this movie. In a lot of ways, it's the Halloween 3 of the franchise, but, well, I also kind of like Halloween 3 too. Coming in at number 8 is Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. My only real complaint about this film is the fact that you only see Manhattan in the final act, and not even the entirety of the final act, depending on how you look at it. I think there were some decent kills in this movie. I kind of dig Jason's design. I don't exactly like his demise in this film, reverting back to a child because of some toxic sludge, even though the case has been made that this is a hallucination that Rennie is having, which makes sense. Don't get me wrong, it makes sense, but it's never really put out there this is exactly what's going on. And, you know, looking at the fact that Jason Goes to Hell, the movie that follows this one, just blatantly says, you know, fuck a lot of the elements of the series, it's hard to tell if that's actually what's going on or not. Nevertheless, Part 8 is going to come in at number 8. And interestingly enough, at number 7, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Commonly referred to as Carrie versus Jason. This is around the time when the seed was first planted to potentially do Jason against another horror icon, specifically Freddy Krueger, which did come to fruition, and we'll see it later on here in the list. However, for this one, I'm not really big on the father ending, where, you know, Tina resurrects her father that she basically fucking killed to take care of Jason. Little hokey, little corny, whatever. But there's some pretty decent kills. The Weed Whacker comes to mind. And it is kind of... had it not been for the Tina character and the psychic abilities, I think this movie probably would have just blended in with the likes of some of the other Friday films, like maybe Part 8, for example, that's just like, oh, okay, another Friday film. But yeah, other than that, it's coming in here in the middle of the list, so I'll give it that much credit. Coming in at number 6 is the crossover that took a decade, over a decade by some accounts, to finally get made. A film that I know having this high on the list may catch me some flack, but it's Freddy vs. Jason. And ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, I understand the acting is shit in this movie. I've heard before that the acting was shit on purpose. I don't know if that's the case. I don't honestly believe that's the case. Maybe it is. Nevertheless, acting aside, rip-off of Jay from the View Askew universe in this movie aside, another weird rapper or R&B artist and Kelly Rowland in this film, kind of reminiscent of Busta Rhymes and that abortion that they called Halloween Resurrection. All that aside, we are getting two of the biggest slasher icons in the history of the genre to come together and duke it out in a story where Freddy and Jason's story makes sense. And the other characters in the movie and some of the things that they threw in, not so much. But it's Freddy versus fucking Jason, okay? For people who were around during this time and into horror, we waited over a decade to see this. And I think on some levels it paid off. And of course on some levels it did fail. But nevertheless, I'm going to rank it number 6 here. Coming in at number 5 is the original sequel, Friday the 13th Part 2. This is the edition where we first meet Jason as the killer antagonist. He's of course wearing the potato sack over his head with the one eye hole cut out, very reminiscent of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I like this movie. And I really like the character of Jenny, who has the child psychology backing her, and that really famous ending scene where she almost tricks Jason into believing that she's his mother. I thought this movie was really well done. Obviously, it ranking at number 5. There are some that have done it better, but love this movie, and yeah, I really can't say too much bad about it, honestly. There are a few flaws here and there, obviously, but that's any movie. Coming in at number 4 is the 3D Friday the 13th Part 3. ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this one to me was, I believe, the first one that I ever actually saw. I rented it from a Blockbuster. It hooked me. Maybe it's just nostalgia talking, but it is the birth of the Jason that we've all come to know and love, with the hockey mask, the really interesting 3D kills. You know, maybe they didn't hold up so well, maybe they look a little hokey, but nevertheless, it is a fantastic movie. If you're a slasher fan or a Friday fan, I don't know many people who don't enjoy Friday the 13th Part 3 that fall into one of those categories. So there it is, at number 4, Friday the 13th Part 3. Alright, we are now in the top 3 in the Friday the 13th franchise, ranking worst to best. So we're getting into the nitty gritty here. I'm sure a lot of the fans out there know the 3 movies that are remaining. So let me go ahead and throw you a little bit of a curveball here, because I am a guy who I believe that it is very possible for sequels to surpass their original. And we can have the Scream 2 conversation, not saying that it's better than 1, but the conversation that actually took place in the movie. But here goes, at number 3, Friday the 13th, the original film. It's a fantastic movie. I enjoy it. I think Mrs. Voorhees was a great killer in this movie. I think it set the standard. It set the bar for what the series was going to be. And I can't really find much I don't like about it. Obviously, some of the effects were just fantastic, being that it was Tom Savini. You know, especially for its time and day. It started this entire franchise that's made, what, $500 million worldwide at the box office. And let's be honest, it's a classic. Alright, coming in at number 2. And this was a very hard decision on which one would be number 2 and which one would be number 1. Because both of these movies are, I rank them so close together in this franchise. So, number 2 is going to be Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. This is a movie that I gotta say, this movie is unlike any other, in my opinion, in the franchise. It was really the first one where you can just look at it and go, they're having fun. And at this point in the franchise, so should we be. And I think that's why I really enjoy it. Awesome kills. I think Tom Matthews, who played Tommy Jarvis, did a excellent job in that role. It was really cool to see him in Never Hike Alone. Really cool to hear him in the Friday the 13th game, even using his specific likeness over the other individuals who have played Tommy in the past, even though that would be kind of funny seeing Corey Feldman in a video game as a child running up to save people. But nevertheless, fantastic movie. It's all about a good time. It may not be considered, you know, a great film, as, you know, but I mean, I think I have a different idea of what makes a great film than a lot of people out there who are considered experts. So I'll back off there. But I'll say I love the film, and it was a really hard choice to decide, should it be number 2 or should it be number 1? And I think with that said, if anyone's out there doing the math here, that leaves one movie in the number 1 spot. And it is my personal favorite Friday the 13th film. That is Friday the 13th, the final chapter, the 4th entry in the series. The introduction of Tommy Jarvis, the original supposed death, and in a lot of ways was the real death of Jason. I think up until this point, till the end of this movie, you can see human qualities behind Jason. The question of if he ever drowned in the first place in 1957. It was a finale for me for what I consider the living, breathing Jason. And interestingly enough, the movie that came before this in my list, number 2, is the first movie where Jason kind of becomes that zombie, almost undead killing machine. And I think that kind of speaks volumes that those 2 movies, not only just to me, because I hear a lot of people say that 4 and 6 are 2 of their favorites in the franchise. But as far as this movie is concerned, we got Corey Feldman, we got the introduction of the first protagonist that really carries on through several films in the franchise and Tommy Jarvis. You got the twins. That's fantastic. And the twins had twins, you know. But yeah, just overall a fantastic movie, a really good time, really bloody, gory, good time. And if you're into the Friday the 13th films, if you're into that kind of story, I really don't see how you couldn't like this one. So I think that'll about do it, ranking the Friday the 13th franchise from 12 to 1, worst to best. But once again, just my opinion. And actually, I'd like to know your guys' opinion. So how about down below in the comments section, let me know, what is your ranking, worst to best, Friday the 13th franchise. So yeah, also, if you would like to, check down below in the description section for ways to follow and support this channel. It would be greatly appreciated. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe if you enjoy my content. Ring that little notification bell. Hopefully Google will let you know when I go live or upload. And yeah, with that said, I want to thank everyone for stopping by here for this a tad bit different video. I think I'll be doing a little bit more like this in the future. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.